And it looks like we are live on Facebook. That was quick. Uh, Welcome to Authors Love Bookstores, presented by A Mighty Blaze. My name is Kimberly Hensle-Lowrance, and I'm your host. If you're watching with us live on Facebook, I want to begin by acknowledging what's going on in Washington, D.C. today. The attack on the U.S. Capitol is scary and concerning for all of us, and we hope that all those who work in the building are safe and that this is resolved quickly and peacefully. We all appreciate that you're taking care of yourselves during this time of great stress by joining us. We feel honored that you're spending time with A Mighty Blaze. After all, we believe, and I trust you do as well, that in times of uncertainty, there's no better source of strength and comfort than books and storytelling and imagination. So thank you for being with us.
Kimberly, that was the most beautiful, profound introduction. You nailed it. Thank you.
Make me cry, Chris. So as you know, we are blessed. Thank you, Chris. We are blessed today, honored, joyful to have the one and only Chris Bohjalian with us. I have been a fan of Chris's work for so long. I was thinking about this when I was preparing for today's show, that I remember being in a book club many moons ago, and we read Midwives, and we talked about it.
8.
Yes, I was. I was precocious. I was 8. And I have always been a huge fan. And I am, so today's show is so important to me because I am just thrilled you're here. So thank you so much, Chris, for being here. And also to our other guests. Let me introduce them. Todd Gross is the manager of Phoenix Books in Burlington, Vermont. And Phoenix Books has 3 stores in Essex, Rutland, and Burlington. And Todd is the manager of the Burlington store. And you were telling me that your company also owns the Yankee Bookshop, which is the oldest continuously operating bookstore in America. Did I get that right? In Vermont. In Vermont. And where is that? Where's the Yankee Bookshop located?
That's in Woodstock, Vermont.
Woodstock, Vermont. Great. And then also with us from the Vermont Bookshop in Middlebury, Vermont, is Jenny Lyons. Welcome, Jenny. We're very happy to have you. So we're going to talk about the bookstores and the Red Lotus and Chris's amazing career, but I want to take a moment to share Chris's bio.
And you can keep it really brief.
I know. I went on your website and I was reading the bio and I'm like, oh my gosh, this would take the whole 45 minutes. Chris is so accomplished. So I just want to give you a couple of highlights. Chris is the best-selling and award-winning author of 21 books. His works have been translated into more than 35 languages, and several times they've become movies and television series. He's also a playwright and a screenwriter, and his books are always on the best of lists, like the end of the year, like this is the book you have to read, and rightly so. His 2018 novel, The Flight Attendant, debuted as a bestseller on all the lists and now is a must-see television series on HBO Max. And there's the tie-in paperback. He has another book. You have another book coming out in April, which is The Hour of the Witch. This sounds amazing. It's a historical thriller set in 1662 Boston, inspired by the first divorce in North America for domestic violence, and also America's original witch hunt.
Yes.
Yeah, it's on my to-read list.
30 years before Salem.
Before Salem.
30 years before Salem. Yep.
Oh gosh, we all have to read that. And we all have to read The Red Lotus, which is such a good book. I just finished it. I've been saving it to read just before you came on the show. And Chris knows that. That means I've been saving it for 9 months. And it debuted as a national bestseller. The paperback just came out yesterday. We're going to have Chris tell you a little bit about the book, but I will say it's incredibly suspenseful. I could not put it down. And I did a play-by-play for my husband, like as I read in bed, turning the pages, which I don't normally do, but I felt like the book was just so addictive, and I could like a page turner of the best possible way. And it's also being made into a movie by the same team that has adapted A Discovery of Witches, which is a great adaptation. And we're so excited you're here.
Thank you.
Also, Chris, you are a huge champion of A Mighty Blaze, sharing news of what we've been doing over the past year or so. So we really appreciate that as well. And we're here because we want to talk about your book, but we want to talk about these two wonderful bookstores. So you chose Phoenix Books and the Vermont Bookshop to talk to today. And I imagine over your career, you visited so many independent bookstores. Can you tell us what makes these two so special to you, other than the fact that they're in Vermont, which I know holds your heart? What is it about these stores that are must visits?
Booksellers like Jenny and Todd and the teams at those stores care so profoundly about their readers and their customers. I mean, we talk a lot about customer service and being a part of the community, but the Vermont Bookshop and Phoenix Books are integral parts of the community. Before we went live, Jenny was talking about how hard they worked to stay open in the pandemic and in the midst of downtown Middlebury construction. And they made it for two reasons. Because they care so much about their readers, and their readers care so much about them. Likewise, Phoenix Books, the reason why they are thriving in 3 locations, and of course have completely rebuilt the bookshop in Woodstock, is because when you walk into Phoenix Books, you immediately have this sense of camaraderie that we all share a love of storytelling. We have a totemic connection to books. And when you walk into the Vermont Bookshop or any of the Phoenix bookstores, you're immersed in this culture of what stories can mean to the soul.
Oh, I love that. What stories can mean to the soul. That feels, Todd, did you just kind of push a tear away?
Yeah.
That feels like ever more important, this idea of what stories mean to our soul. I mean, I think over the past year, it's what brought us great solace. I mean, it always brings us solace, but it feels like over the past year especially, finding a wonderful book to spend time with has been good for all of our mental health.
I mean, since, we began wearing masks, I cannot tell you the weird comfort I got from being with Jenny and Todd or Becky or Renee or any of these other booksellers at these stores, even though we're separated by masks, and just being together. A bookstore is more than a room full of books. It's a salon. It's a gathering place. I mean, I have done so many events at so many bookstores over the years, and so many events, with these stores that, my heart is just overwhelmed with love for these human beings and what they do for their communities. It is miraculous.
Wow.
That's beautiful. And I know from my experience being in a bookstore, what makes it so special is just what you're saying, Chris, this idea of community, and also the fact that I can turn to a bookseller and I can say, I loved this book. What else might I like? And there's always a recommendation that's fabulous, that's insightful.
And here's a confession. When I walk into Phoenix or the Vermont Bookshop and I'm on a staff recommend, Riley's picks, Becky's picks, Jenny's picks, Todd's picks, my day is made because, oh my God, the numbers of books they have to wade through. I mean, yeah, it's really cool to be a Washington Post best book of the year, but when your Phoenix Books or Vermont Bookshops, one of the staff recommends, they have gone through a boatload of books.
Well, we have to also say thank you so much to Chris, because as Todd mentioned earlier, it was right at the start of the pandemic that his book was coming out, and he did everything in his power to make sure that people that wanted his books and wanted a signed copy of his book came to us. And actually, in anything that Becky, who is the owner of the Vermont Bookshop, has been saying about how we survived the pandemic and how we managed to scrape through this year, we give a lot of credit to Chris and the Red Lotus for being one of our top selling books of the year. And for Chris, every time he would mention us on his social media and direct people to us, there was direct sales, you know, from that. And so we thank you for that, Chris.
You bet. No, I think all of you so much. I get to do what I get to do because of two groups of people, readers and booksellers.
Jenny and Todd, can you tell us how it is that you can do this magic of hand selling? Like, how do you know, like, what's the art of making a good book recommendation? How do you do that? How do you decide which books to read? How do you decide which books to connect people with? What's the magic there?
Well, I'll go first, I guess. For me, it's really questioning and active listening. If you do those two things well, then you can get the information that you need to try to match the customer with the right book. And it may not be that customer, maybe that customer's mother or son or grandfather or friend or whatever. So the more you can engage with the customer and the more they'll engage back with you, the easier it is then for us to get our little brains moving and then try to identify the right thing. So questioning and really listening, those are the two things that I really focus on.
Have you ever had it? Oh, go ahead, Jenny.
Oh, I would agree with that. I mean, listening would be the first thing I would say. And as far as, picking what books to read, it's really just a gut thing. And I feel like in general, if it's a really good book, it's you just sort of know that instinctually from the number of books that you do read over the course of a year or, a month. And if it's a really good book, a large percentage of the people whose hands you put it into are going to enjoy it, no matter the subject matter or style or genre.
Have you ever been stumped? Someone asks for help and it's just like, oh, I really don't have a recommendation, or Todd's like, yes.
Yeah, it definitely happens. And mostly it happens because you don't get enough information. They don't know the person.
That
So
old book,
Jenny
it has
said,
a blue cover.
Yeah. In that case, if you don't have a lot of information, then you just try to identify something that you think is good and will be a fun read, and you go that way. It's hard to match if you don't know, you don't have the information. So yeah, sometimes we do get stumped, and I don't want to. When that happens, I try to be honest about that too. Because I don't want to give somebody a book that's not going to work. That's the worst thing you can do. Even if it's a great book, if it may not be the right book for that customer, that reader.
I was at Phoenix Books on Monday, and Todd was on the phone for at least 6 minutes, so patiently, so kindly, getting all the information he could to try to find a reader a particular book, and he nailed it. But it was quite clear that this was going to be a process, but he did it.
I think I've been almost stumped. I will always, but I do not give up easily. If someone is looking for, if they have a particular book in mind, but they can't remember like the author or the title, I am a advanced Google search user, and I can find them with correct keywords. And I remember in particular spending it like at least a half an hour. Like I had left this customer. They were then browsing in the store, but I just wouldn't give up. I just kept wandering over. I'd be like, what about this? And they're like, no. And I just kept doing it until I finally found something that connected. And that customer actually came back and said, yeah, that was it. It was a teenage girl, and she was very particular, and she's right on the cusp. And
Right.
yeah, it's hard to give up. So I've been
Yeah.
almost stumped.
Yeah, so there's recommending, but then there's also, as Jenny's saying, there's customers that come in and they have a particular book in mind. They just don't know what the name of that book is or who wrote it or what it's about, but they do know that it has a blue cover. And so those are really fun challenges, I think. And it's nice at Phoenix Books because we are kind of a larger bookstore, so we often have 3 or 4 people, booksellers working. And so we can communicate with each other and sort of like Jenny said, go online and where'd you hear about it? I mean, you have to ask good questions.
Right.
But yeah, that's really a fun thing. It's like being a detective, a book detective, and trying to figure out. And when you do find a book for that person, boy, it's such a great feeling, right, Jenny?
Yes.
It's so fun. Yeah, that's so great.
The other thing about independent bookstores that I find to be so much fun are the live events, like the coming together with an author. I know so many people who have fangirled or fanboyed when they've got to meet their favorite author and talk about a book that they love. I'm curious, from all 3 of you, can you think of a special live event in the past at one of the bookstores that was really meaningful to you? I know we're not doing live events right now. We're doing Zoom events and Eventbrites or whatever. But someday we'll go back to live events. But so what are you holding on to as a memory of a very special live event? Chris has one. Go for it, Chris.
2, one involving each of these stores. In 2000, when The Night Strangers came out, the Vermont Bookshop and Becky Dayton did an event at the Town Hall Theater in Middlebury with stadium seating. And what made it lovely wasn't just the venue, but to make sure that she had the troops she needed. She had Annie Philbrick from Bank Street Books in Connecticut with her. So it was a Vermont bookshop event with Connecticut cavalry in a beautiful theater. And then the first time, and we've done this 3 times, that I did an event with Phoenix Books with my buddy Stephen Kiernan, Universe of Two, The Baker's Secret, and Phoenix would do it at the Fletcher Free Library. And there'd be like 300 people.
That was great.
Set up on 3 levels. So I can remember thinking, holy cow, this is what John Lennon felt like at Shea Stadium in 1964.
I remember that so well. That was so fun. So many people, and it's about 3 blocks from the store. And I remember myself and Carrie, who's now running the Yankee Bookshop. She was my assistant manager at the time, and we had like a hand truck, and it had so many books on it that the 2 of us were like, we didn't want to put it in the car and take it out the car, so we were trying to like roll it down the hill to the library. It was that was so fun. And Chris, if you've never been to an event with Chris, you got to go because he gives goodies away too.
Oh, I love this flag.
You got to come from really far away. That's how you get a T-shirt.
And for Hour of the Witch, but first of all, we had so much swag for the Red Lotus.
We did, yeah.
T-shirts, we had pins, we had bookmarks. But anyway, so for Hour of the Witch, I'm not sure yet, but what do we go with? Pilgrim coifs for the head, or 3-tined forks, or the devil's tines. I found them at Tiffany's for only $129 a fork. Do we give those away?
Yes, definitely the forks.
Because you cannot have too many antique forks.
True.
I want to talk a little bit about the Red Lotus. Congratulations on the paperback launch, Chris.
Thank you.
As I mentioned earlier, it is a can't put it down page turner. And it also reveals you as a bit of a fortune teller, that you wrote a book about a pandemic that came out at the start of a pandemic. What inspired you to write this book?
Yeah, the timing kind of sucked.
Or you're just, you have magical skills.
I want to be a fortune teller writing a book about, cures for cancer. The end of the Trump administration. Those are the books I should be writing, fortune telling about. The Red Lotus is about a ER doctor who goes on a bike tour of Vietnam with her new boyfriend, and he disappears. And in his absence, she discovers that everything he told her was a lie, and she has no idea how much danger she is in. Mm-hmm. The book had its origins in April of 2018. I saw 2 articles in 2 newspapers. One was in the New York Times, and it was about how New York City rats carry 8 different kinds of antibiotic-resistant bacteria. The second was in the New York Post, and it was about the 8 buildings in New York City with the most rat complaints. And I was really interested, and there was an epidemiologist named Peter Daszak in the New York Times article who said, oh yeah, the next pandemic, it's coming. So I picked up the phone and called him up and interviewed him. And he said, oh, New York will be ground zero when there's another pandemic. And it is coming because New York City has the 3 things you need for a pandemic: high population density, a population that depends on mass transportation, and people coming and going from foreign countries all the time. Simultaneously, I happened to have lunch with a guy in my little Vermont community who was a Vietnam veteran. And we'd watched Ken Burns' special. And I kept asking him questions about his service. And every story ended with, I never told anyone that. Or, I never told my wife that. And so I began to wonder if there was a confluence. Imagine it's Darwinian Vietnamese rats who evolved because of Agent Orange and, yes, antibiotic resistance rats in New York City. And I was off and running. I said to my wife, feel like going on a bike tour of Vietnam? She'd love to. So we went on a bike tour of Vietnam, which was instrumental to the research for the book. And a year later, we had the Red Lotus.
It's almost as if you were meant to write that book. All of those things kind of came together in this perfect alchemy.
All my books are alchemic like that. Really diverse elements, like The Flight Attendant, was born in a bar, appropriately. Mm-hmm. I had just flown from Armenia to New York City, and I was meeting a friend for dinner at 7:30. I got to the restaurant at 6:30, dropped off my bags in the coat room, and did the only sensible thing. I went to the bar, and I ordered Arak, A-R-A-K. It's weaponized ouzo. It's like, 7,000 proof. And as I was drinking my Arak, 3 threads came together to create The Flight Attendant. First of all, the beauty of booze. I come from a family of alcoholics on both sides, so I will never glamorize alcoholism. But we all know the beauty of a great bar. The second thread was the Miracle of Aviation. I'd had breakfast in Armenia. I'm having dinner in New York City. We can only do that because of planes. Even when I am in the very back row of a regional jet, 6 inches from the lavatory, I try never to lose sight of the fact I'm flying. And the third thread, Russia. Russia is a gift that just keeps giving to novelists. This is a country that gave us Dostoevsky, Tchaikovsky, the Bolshoi Ballet, and yet, without fail, whoever is running the show in the Kremlin is an actual James Bond villain. It's on the job description. Do you poison people with radioactive tea? Yes or no? I had an idea. Alcoholic hot mess of a flight attendant wakes up next to a dead body far from home and lies to the FBI. And I wrote the first 3 pages at that bar on cocktail napkins.
One of the things we were getting audience questions now, and one of them was very much what I was going to ask, which is, it is amazing how many books you have written. You publish a book, I don't know, every year, every 2 years, and they're all consistently great page turners. How are you able to produce this level of quantity and quality? Because there are authors who spend, 15 years, 20 years on a book. What is it about, how do you do it? What's your magic? You are magical, Chris. I think we've established that today. Fortune telling.
I'm very flattered by the question, but I am responsible for the single worst first novel ever published, bar none. There is no book worse than A Killing in the Real World, my first book. I never know where my books are going. I begin with a really vague premise. Antibiotic-resistant rats. A man disappears on a bike tour in Vietnam. That's all I knew when I started. The flight attendant, blackout drunk, wakes up next to a dead body far from home. And then I depend on my characters to take me by the hand and lead me through the dark of the story. I never outline, never.
You don't.
No idea where my books are going, which is part of what makes it really fun for me.
Jenny and I have the same response, which is, what?
Yeah,
I think is what makes them so incredible and realistic, is that the people are unpredictable, which people are. Yeah. And when you talk about the main character, or one of the main characters, disappearing on a bike trip, well, the other person is just as interesting. Like, her story and how it unfolds is as interesting, if not more interesting, which is the same with the flight attendant. Like, the stories that come out of the situations that you set up are so interesting.
And you also got to a great point. The books might be page turners, but for me, it's all about character. And I love flawed, and I think you used the word imperfect characters. Can you imagine a bookstore that doesn't have sharp objects, The Secret History,
I love that book,
Crime and Punishment, flawed characters? Sometimes readers say to me, oh, I didn't like that book because he or she made bad decisions. And that's fine. But I prefer books that are messy. One of the things that Kaylee Cuoco says as Cassie Bowden in episode 1 of the TV series, when they're talking about Crime and Punishment, she literally says to character Alex Sokolov, what's wrong with messy? I like messy.
Yeah.
And I just love that moment. I know Kaylee is fantastic as Cassie Bowden. She is Cassie Bowden. She walks the tightrope between heartbreak and hilarity. And that's what I love about what I do in this room every day. I write about messy, flawed characters.
We have a reader comment for you, Chris, which is, the Red Lotus came out at the perfect time. It's been so hard to focus, but Chris's story took hold of me and helped me through some dark days.
Oh, first of all, thank you. Certainly books have helped me so much through dark days, not simply the last 11 months, but my whole life. I mean, right now, the most courageous person I know is my daughter, because she's an actor, principally a stage actor. And, theater shut down. So one of the things that has given her so much solace and comfort are books. In the last week and a half, it's been Barack Obama's book. I mean, books kept her sane in much the same way that in the loneliest, saddest points in my life, often growing up, it was books. I mean, I would not have survived 8th and 9th grade if it wasn't for Peter Benchley and Jaws, and Joyce Carol Oates and Expensive People, and Harper Lee and To Kill a Mockingbird, and William Peter Blatty and The Exorcist.
Ooh, The Exorcist.
We were reading the same things then at the same time. Jaws.
Great minds think alike, but so that reader, thank you to him or her. Thank you.
And that's actually a perfect segue into my question for Todd and Jenny, which is, we obviously want everyone to read The Red Lotus and to pre-order Hour of the Witch. Those are our top recommendations. But there are also other books coming out in 2021. And as booksellers, you have that very special privilege of reading books before they come out and knowing what's coming out. What would you recommend that our viewers keep an eye out for new releases for this year? Anything you've read that you're really looking forward to that you want them to go pre-order right now from your store? Or if that one's tricky because there are so many books coming out, something that's really popular in the store right now that your customers are buying other than The Red Lotus and Hour of the Witch? Is there something else that you'd want them to check out? Even another local Vermont author?
I can say one book I'm excited about and in the middle of reading right now is by Jane Harper, who The Survivors was along, I think shares some similarities with Chris's books in that the characters definitely take center stage. The mystery, or the plot is suspenseful and keeps you reading, and that's like a backdrop to it, but the characters and their relationships and the choices that they make are what really provide like the heart of the book. So I'm excited about that. Yeah.
Great. Todd, anything you want to keep our eye
Yeah,
out?
so my reading is kind of focused on speculative fiction, so science fiction and fantasy. And probably my favorite book that I read in the last few months was called A Deadly Education by Naomi Novik. And it's in the genre of wizard school. If you like those genres, like Harry Potter is probably the most famous example, but there are many others. And the interesting thing for me about The Deadly Education was that it's only about half of the kids actually graduate this school. So it's really deadly as they're trying to get educated. I love the main character. Her voice is amazing. So that was one of my favorite things that I read in the last few months. I've been hand selling that a lot to people that like those kind of books. And then something I'm really looking forward to, because in my store, we're kind of a geeky store, I guess. And we also like reading a lot of young adult titles.
Mm-hmm.
And there's an author, Kristen Kashor, and she's written a series called Graceling, which I thought was finished as a 3-book series. And now she has a new book coming out called Winterkeep. And it continues the story of Graceling. That's I'm really looking forward to that one. And that's a fabulous trilogy all about friendship and loyalty, and trying to figure out who you are and how do you fit in. And anyway, I think young adult stories sometimes can really get to a really heart of character development. And so those are two things one thing I've really been recommending, and one I'm really looking forward to.
Great. Chris, what about you? Did you get a special book for the holidays or give one to someone, or what are you reading right now?
Okay, I'm going to do two things.
Yes.
These are the books, among the many books that I gave for Christmas this year.
Oh, I love this. What did you get? That's my favorite.
Okay. Barack Obama's autobiography, first volume, Circe.
Love that book.
That was great.
The Water Dancer, News of the World, The Lying Life of Adults. Those are just off the top of my head when I wrote them down before this interview, that I remembered buying at either Phoenix or the Vermont bookshop. Two books that are coming out in the first 6 months of 2021 that I liked a lot. One is a thriller called Bath House, Haus, by P.J. Vernon. Unbelievable page turner. And in March, a real change of pace from Lisa Scodlini. It's called Eternal, Rome in World War II. Both books are fantastic. And what are some of the books that I'm sure are selling like crazy at these two bookstores that I just loved and I bought at these two bookstores? Excuse me. The Queen's Gambit. Love the TV series. Love the novel. Leave the World Behind by Rumen Alam. I gotta tell you, I think dread is my sweet spot, but I am a rank amateur when it comes to dread compared to Rumen. Is This Anything by Jerry Seinfeld. Great change of pace. The Searcher by Tana French. The Vanishing Half by Britt Bennett. And I got to give a shout out to my Middlebury buddy, two Middlebury buddies, Jay Perini, for his wonderful memoir, Borges and Me, about getting his PhD in Scotland as a young man in the 1970s and being told, care for this alcoholic Nobel laureate. Show him Scotland. It's great. And of course, my buddy Stephen Kiernan's Universe of Two.
We're big fans of Stephen Kiernan here on The Mighty Blaze. Jenny, you recognize one of the books that Chris was talking about. You got very excited.
Well, a few of them, because, Circe, News of the World, two of my all-time favorites. But the Jay Perini book, Borges and Me, is, I also love that, Chris. Any book that finds a way to end up on the Loch Ness in the Scottish Highlands is going to be enjoyed by me.
Yeah. Without wanting to spoil it, an alcoholic Nobel laureate taking a dive after the monster, and some poor postdoc candidate having to fish him out of the loch.
What an incredible story. He did such a good job telling it. It probably will get made into a film, which I can already picture.
Yep.
So speaking of films, the Red Lotus is going to be made into a television series. And Chris, can you tell us how involved are you in the adaptations of your novels? Do you have any say in script, casting, anything?
Virtually none.
Oh, okay.
The Flight Attendant is sort of a perfect example. And this is what, I've had 3 other books become movies. The key is to make sure that you're selling it to the right people. When Kaylee Cuoco fell in love with the book 6 months before it was published, and we were connecting on it, 2 things were clear to me. A, she is legitimately brilliant. B, she understood Cassie. She understood her childhood pain. She understood her scars. And she was the perfect person. I had some conversations early on with Steve Yockey, who is also brilliant. I mean, he was the showrunner for years on Supernatural, and he's not just a great TV series person, he's a playwright, which, no spoiler, when you watch the ending moment of The Flight Attendant, it was my stage daughter who said, it's a playwright who's the brilliant mind behind that ending, because that ending isn't just cinematic, it is theatrical in the best sense of the stage word. And when Steve and I had a conversation early on, we talked about his vision and the arc. And again, I'm not going to spoil this, but there were two changes from the book that were important to me. And he said, no, got to tell you, I don't want to say we're a step ahead of you, but we are in 100% agreement.
Great. That's wonderful.
Yeah. Separate from those two projects, I am deeply involved with the writing of an adaptation of Skeletons at the Feast with Lou Diamond Phillips.
Oh.
It's a long way from getting the green light because we're in a pandemic, and Skeletons at the Feast is a World War II epic that demands, 7,000 extras not wearing masks. But Lou is not merely a great actor and a great human being. He's a fantastic writer. I mean, this past autumn, he published one of my favorite books of the year, The Tinderbox. And so together we are writing Skeletons at the Feast. So I am involved with that. And then separately with another screenwriter, I'm working on an adaptation of The Guest Room.
Wow. You are incredibly prolific and busy.
I'm just old. Literally, that's my secret. I'm old. And I've been doing this forever.
But you love it.
Oh, I do so much.
Yeah, it's very clear that you do. And we're coming to the end of our time, so I want to ask just a couple more questions. Todd, here's one for you.
Yeah.
Please finish this sentence for us. Running a successful bookstore is part hard work, part luck, and part what else?
Passion, I think. If you don't, nobody gets rich running bookstores except for Jeff Bezos, and he's no longer running. But if you don't love what you're doing, I'm sure Jenny will agree with this, then you could be the best at it. But it's the passion that we have, like Chris said, for our community, for connecting readers with books. If you don't have that in yourself, and if you can't get that from your team of booksellers, then it won't work. So that's how I would answer that one.
And then Jenny, for you, we have an audience question, which is actually a question I was going to ask too, which is, I can support independent bookstores by buying books from them, but what else can I do to make sure the independent bookstores continue to thrive? We've read the statistics that one indie bookstore closes every week in America. We don't want that to happen. They're so vital to our communities. What would you say that your community can do to support you other than buy books?
Yeah, I mean, helping just spread the word. Social media is a powerful tool. You like our posts, share our posts, talk about us online, share our content so it gets out to more people. I mean, the way we're doing business now, we've got customers all over the country. They don't have to be in our town, though we love all of our customers in our town. But so, yeah, I mean, spreading the word. Look at Dan Rather as, a spokesperson, speak up when it's like anything. Speak up if someone's like, oh, I could just buy that at, they who shall not be named, say, or you could buy it at your independent bookstore, encourage your friends. You don't have to go overboard, but, just keep spreading the word is helpful.
And so the other thing people can do is they can go to your websites and enroll in your newsletters. So to find out about upcoming events. And so Phoenix Books is online at phoenixbooks.biz, B-I-Z, and Vermont Bookshop is online at vermontbookshop.com. So those are great ways. And you're both on your stores are on social media, as you just mentioned, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and we'll put all those links below so people can easily find them. I know Phoenix Books also created a special page on their website for today's event listing Chris's books, and that's going to be pasted below as well. We've also posted links to Vermont Bookshop as well to buy Chris's books. Phoenix Books, I know, Chris, you're going to go and sign some books there as well for people. So if they want to get signed Chris books, you can do that from the store, from both stores.
From both stores. If you want signed copies of the Red Lotus, The Flight Attendant, if you want to pre-order Hour of the Witch, I have signed so many books at those two bookstores. And here's the other thing that's just, it's Vermont and where I live. I can personalize them. You know, if you want a personalized Hour of the Witch, when you pre-order it, just let the bookstore know online. I mean, and they'll ship it right out to you. And I mean, it's amazing how many books those two stores ship.
Yeah.
It's just a gift. And the other thing I want to make sure I say is thank you, A Mighty Blaze. Thank you, Kimberly. And in addition to buying, you know, all of the books we've talked about, buy any book by Carolyn Levitt or Jenna Plum, because the two of them are not merely amazing human beings with moral compasses that are precise. They are fantastic novelists, and they have a large body of work. And Phoenix and Vermont Bookshop has them or can get you all of them.
It's very true. Thank you, Chris. Thank you, Jenny. Thank you, Todd. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you to all of our viewers for spending time with us. We will be back here next week, book lovers, for another edition of Authors Love Bookstores. We will be hosting Louise Miller and Buttonwood Books and Toys, which is a local independent bookstore here in Massachusetts. And I am so grateful to finally have some time with Chris. And I really, if you want to be swept away in a wonderful story, all of Chris's books are terrific, and we especially recommend the Red Lotus. And I just want to remind you that Hour of the Witch is coming out right before Mother's Day. So if you're looking for a book for someone you care about, who may be a mother or maybe a mother-like figure or whatever.
Or a witch.
Or a witch, you could buy the book from one of these bookstores, have it personalized, and sent to them in time for Mother's Day. So there, I just did your Mother's Day shopping for you too.
Thank you, Kimberly. That's brilliant.
Full service. Full service.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Thank you all so much.
Joining.
Be well, keep reading, and we'll see you next time here on Authors Love Bookstores.